when I was doing the first exercise of what do you want and why do you want it, one of the things that came up for me was wanting to have more confidence in the decisions that I make in my life. And, and on top of that, also wanting to have a better understanding or a better feeling of an understanding of, like, I don't know, not just reality, but life itself, so that I can navigate it in an optimal way for myself. Mm-hmm. And so do you think that lucid dreaming is actually an avenue for that?
Oh, I think it's an avenue for a lot of things, so it's, that's pretty deep. But
Right.
A lot of people, aren't going to go to that territory, alongside of you, right? Because you're basically saying, what's the meaning of life and where's my place in that picture?
Right, I mean, I know that's like
no, that's a big one, right?
It is. But but to the point of being, like, practical, it's like we all read books that inspire us or follow teachers that inspire us, right. And we all are presented with these different ideas of, like, frameworks for how to make our lives great, or right. How we should think about things.
Sure.
And so those are all just ideas, but oftentimes those ideas compete with each other, and then we try to balance those with our actual life experience. And so it's like, how does that all, I don't know.
How does it all weave together?
Yeah.
Well, I think with lucid dreaming, one of the best parts is, and I'll give you my take on it, and then I'll play devil's advocate to myself, right? So, like, I think that, when you have a handle on it, I mean, even, let's say you're out of that phase where you're just having fun. You just, whatever comes, right? And you're just out of it. I mean, it's like, you get to that point where you're doing a little bit more work, and you've got some elements of control, and you've got it down, right? Because initially when you get in, it's not going to be something you direct, right? You're just going to pop in someplace, you're going to wake up within a dream, you're going to realize that you're dreaming, and then you're going to go off on an adventure, right? Or something will happen, and you're going to be amazed that you're conscious within a dream, and then that's pretty cool. And just in and of itself, that's pretty fantastic, really. And plenty of people have had that spontaneously, right? And I mean, forever, right? A lot of people have done it, but to actually promote the ability and build it up in yourself and work through it to the point where you have, access to it on a regular basis and a certain amount of control there that can grow with time and effort, right? So there's a discipline to it. One of the aspects of that, directly related to what you asked, is, when a lot of times when we do these things, right? When we, set up these goals for our lives in our, everyday affairs, and we think through the process, right, of how we're going to approach them. I want to have more confidence in this, but I'm not sure what's going to happen, and all of that. It's hard for us, other than a mental gymnastics of actually running through, those. Here's how I want it to go, right?
What are the potential scenarios?
How's this gonna play out? From really, really bad, which can damage you, as well as really, really good, and it doesn't turn out that way, right? So both things are not so great, but so. In a lucid dream, you're basically able to, once you have that control, you're able to run that scenario, like going in to ask the boss for a raise. You run the scenario over and over again, so that it's almost like psychology, conditioning of a phobia, right? Mm-hmm. So it's like you go step by step. First, it's just, you do entering his office 20 times and, being turned down, and then feeling like, oh, it's not a big deal. And by the time you find out it's not a big deal, and then, what if I tweak this and ask in this way? What's the response going to be? And, all of these things. Now, it's a way to sort of do that and again, sort of desensitize yourself to the actual event, regardless of which way it goes, right? I mean, you're always going to try to put it in the context of something positive happening to you, and that's why you change it. It's sort of like the Groundhog Day thing, right? If this doesn't work, what if I approach it this way? What if I approach it this way? And you just keep getting shot down until you finally find that one avenue that may have the positive effect that you're looking for. But regardless, you've gone through it so many times that it's not nearly the trauma when you go to do it for real, right? And so, and of course, you always want to check it out. You don't want to, the last thing I want somebody to do is...
I guess somebody's argument would be like, what, why would I expect the things that happen as a response to my actions in a lucid dream have anything to do with my waking life?
Right. I mean, and my response would be, you'd have to check that out and that's why we check out whatever we get for information in there.
Right. Like how people respond.
All of that, right? So I'm not just starting off with like asking the boss for a raise, right? I'm using smaller increments and building up to that. So I know, I start to correlate, I'm not going to say it's a causation, right? But there's a correlation between what I do and how I approach things. Now, I could, play the other side of it just like you did. And my answer to that would be, what if just running that scenario 30, 40, 50 times? You have to sleep anyway, right? And maybe you can do multiple times in the same evening, right? Once you have that kind of control, you can go through that over and over and over again. So what if running that just builds up your confidence to be able to do that you just hold yourself differently when you walk in there, you speak differently, you have no preconceived idea really of getting it or not getting it, and the raise, and but the interaction is going to be on a level that you wouldn't have had before if it was completely unknown what's going to happen when you touch that doorknob and then go into the office and confront, your boss, right? So it takes a piece of that unknown out of the equation because you've done it so many times, regardless if it's going to track exactly the way it does in your lucid dream. It's like you've been through the scenario with the feelings, because we have everything that we have here, right? We have our feelings, all the senses, all of that, they're just very heightened, right? So our feelings are heightened as well when we go through that. So, in doing that, we just sort of desensitize ourselves. And isn't that alone, still, so the denial isn't crushing. From that and from my position, my more secure position in my mind.
The denial of what?
Denial of the raise, if that's what you're going for.
If
that's what it happens, right? You walk out of there with more confidence, you walk out knowing that you did your best, and you probably now, because of the way you're acting, you probably have a backup plan. Like, okay, I'm going to start looking for another job, or I'm going to look for another position, or I'm going to do this, or I'm going to do that. You're not just going like, and crawling into a bottle later, thinking that, that, oh, woe is me, I didn't get the raise I asked for. Right. So, it gives you a different attitude. And so isn't that, even if nothing else, isn't that worth it? We've all been in situations where it makes us very uncomfortable. And most of that discomfort comes from moving into something that you don't know, right? It's walking into the unknown and not knowing what the repercussions of that are going to be.
Right.
And so that makes us uncomfortable because we like, familiar things, right? Family, familial things, right? And so that's the known to us. It's like, okay, we're going to do this, and I know what the range of outcomes is going to be, but I know that also, my family's probably not going to kick me out of the house for that, or depending, whatever it is, right? So, but it's known, you have all these parameters that are known, but so the things that are uncomfortable for us, for the most part, are the things that are unknown. And so, and the only point of reference you have in the unknown is yourself, right? You're the only reference point if you know yourself, right? So in doing that and doing these lucid dreams and sort of putting yourself through that, through the paces there and getting to that level, you're expanding, your idea of walking into the unknown. You're making that unknown a little, pushing it back farther because you're making it more known. Here's all these parameters that it could have been, instantly fired, instantly given a raise, promoted to the boss's job, like all the ridiculous ones and all the ones that are more likely to happen, right? And something in between. And so, but just going through it, it becomes, you've done it so many times that you become pretty neutral to it. Sort of like you make your best pitch. There's no nerves anymore. There's none of that.
So I think, what I'm taking away from this right now is like, regardless of whether you could have a dream that would give you the perfect answer, or meet some aspect of yourself that would just be like, yeah, you're doing great, don't worry about it, or right. Here's the right answer to this problem, or here's what I think you should do. It's like,
say this word when he says this,
yeah,
and you'll instantly get what you want.
Right. That would be very cool.
That would be very cool. It doesn't happen very often.
Right. But I guess I feel like what you're saying is like, regardless of whether you get super clear answers that increase your confidence in your own decisions, it's like the more experience you have of playing out different scenarios, making different decisions, seeing how that stuff plays out, the more confidence you have like in yourself that
right.
regardless of what happens from the situations in your life, you have confidence in yourself and your ability to just be like, yeah, I'm going to be good no matter what happens. Like,
yeah, because remember that in the lucid dream compared to a regular dream, or let's say running those scenarios in your mind, just your mind, running, maybe having some anxiety-driven dreams about the scenario beforehand, right? And then having a lucid dream where, you're actually running the scenarios on your own, right? Intentionally. In my mind, I can run, a bazillion configurations of that, right? So, and it's like, and none of them really hold much value, none of them hold much emotional value more than the others, right? There's not, you might get a little tweak here or there, right? Something really great and something really bad. But other than that, they're pretty neutral. And we all know the emotions are where the juice are. That's where your energy is. That's when energy somatizes in the body. It's a feeling, right? You get a visceral sensation. That's why we get butterflies in our stomach when we're excited or anxious about something, right? And people have that all over in different areas depending on the person. So, but that's when it's really like invested in your physical body. There's a lot of juice there, right? So, in just running the scenarios mentally, there's not a lot of that present. And so it's
because it's so fleeting.
It's just
like
a construct,
right.
It's like a contrived construct in your mind, and it. So no matter how much you try to put yourself in that place, it's very difficult. I'm not saying people can't do it. You can, but it's a lot of work to get to that place where you can do that and do it consistently too, right? So, in a regular dream, if they're anxiety driven, there's always going to be that edge of anxiety there. And they're going to be confused and a little dull, and like probably not even in linear sequence or whatever. Things are just going to be jumbled. And so you come out even more anxious than you did, right? And, that's not an emotion you really want to hold on to for any length of time. And, and probably not really thinking that there's any answers there for you, except making you even more anxious and burning up more of your reserves of energy before you even get to the scenario, right? Because we all know anxiety and worry, they're just basically emotionally empty calories, right? They don't really do anything except wear you down. And so there's nothing really good about them, right? So except giving you, maybe training yourself to act when you get that way instead of just, going inside and like holding on to it for dear life because it's something familiar again, right? So it's like act instead and you'll be better off for that. So, and then there's a lucid dream where everything's hyper, right? It's like not only are you there and able to control it, but all your senses are heightened. So visually things are much more saturated. It's hyper real. Sound, all of the senses come online and are very, very, very strong and powerful, right? Well, because you're there with your conscious mind, that generates, kind of hypersensitivity emotionally too. Not like where you're weeping all the time or laughing hysterically all the time
right,
or whatever,
right.
But it's just like they're very, you feel them profoundly in your dream body, let's say. And so going through that scenario and having that hyper state and having that desensitize you, when you go to do the real thing, it's going to be like you're turning the volume down on it a little bit, emotionally. Mm-hmm. It's kind of like, I've done this 50 times. I'm going to put my best foot, I got nothing to lose. I'm going to go and do that. It's like, and you just go in with all the confidence and because you've rehearsed it and done it so many times, you have the answers to, questions, and it's, I think it's a much more beneficial way to do it. And that's just scratching the surface, right? It's just what kind of practical benefit can we derive from this practice.
Right.
I think it's much more broad than that, but I'm just looking at the, on the base level, what can I do? The same thing, pick a scenario for relationships, pick a scenario for your health, pick a scenario for your spirituality, and, put them all on that base level, and, running through that over and over again and putting yourself in different scenarios, whatever, it tends to, sort of take the sharp edges off the swords and spears that are here for us, so, and I think that helps you to move through this life and with a lot more confidence. And isn't that better? We all love to see confident people.
Right. Yeah.
I mean, it's like you want to be around them, right? It's like,
yeah.
let me go first, or not stupid brave, where it's like, they're just running into danger and trying to fix every problem.
But centered.
Yeah, centered. Like I got this, and if I don't have it, I can spin out of it pretty easily too. It's like I may not know all of this, but I'm confident even in saying I don't know. And we look at those people, we really respect them, right? Because they have that assuredness within themselves. They're not using any reference point other than themselves.
Yeah.
And you can tell when people do that. It's like they stand out. Mm-hmm. So what's the problem with that? Wouldn't we all want to be that? I mean, we don't admire people we don't like. We don't admire people that are not living up to their expectations or whatever, right? So it's, why wouldn't you want to be that? No matter what you do and no matter what areas of your life are good or bad or need work or whatever. I mean, I feel like every area of my life, can always use tweaking. As constant adjustment and, constantly trying to build them up and make it better. There's no resting point. I think that's one of those first things you learn is that,
first things you learn how?
I think just in general, anybody who's trying to live, I hate to use the word spiritual, but let's say, a very well-rounded life, is that there's no rest. You don't, you might have little plateaus where you can rest, you have a nice weekend, everything's great, but on Monday, I'm working on my relationship, no matter how good the weekend went. It's like I'm not forgetting about it or taking it for granted or whatever. I mean, we're constantly working on those things. We're constantly sharpening those, the points on the pencil when it comes to looking at those things for ourselves. I know where my flaws are, and I'm always trying to diminish those, and I'm always trying to build up the good parts, right? And add them in if I don't have those, right? So, and make myself more well-rounded and make myself a better person that's more available for the other people that are around me, from, my family, my friends, community, and at large, students, all of that. So, you never stop learning. You never stop trying to, better yourself. So, and I feel that this is one of those tools that's really, really, really good at doing that.
Yeah.